Hello, everyone. I am Philip Galindo. I get to be the worship pastor here at Moore Church, where we believe that God has more for you. Before we get started, I want you to hit that subscribe button because we don't want you to miss out on anything that God has for you. We believe that this message is tailor-made just for you. So grab your iPad, your pen, and your paper, and let's jump into the Word.
Y'all looking good? We got a full house today. Wow, you guys braved the cold. Good job. Congratulations, you made it. You've survived this chilly Texas winter. Man, I am looking forward to 11 o'clock service. There's a different energy in the room. Y'all are feeling good. I'm excited. We're in this series, kicking off the year, called The Ripple Effect. We're talking about how our yes ripples in other people's lives. And so last week, Pastor Enrique kicked this service off with us, and he talked about the ripple of our humility. What's up, Enrique? Glad to have you. He talked about how our humility ripples in the lives of other people. And then Stephanie came and she talked about in her story about how though she went through a lot of hurt and heartache, that when she would tell her story, God would use that heartache to really change the lives of some other people. So it was so good last week. It was powerful. It was good. But this week, I'm pumped. I'm ready. I'm excited because we're talking about an idea that might not sound as flashy, but will change everything in your life. It's not flashy. Everyone say it's not flashy, but it's powerful. Consistency. Consistency. It's a new year, right? So y'all got your New Year's resolutions. Everybody went and bought some broccoli and got on the treadmill a little bit, right? But you know the real thing? Don't you wish that you could go to the gym and have a good 4-hour workout and walk out with a six-pack? That would be awesome, right? But that's not how it works. It's not about just one big moment. It's about consistency to really create change. And so today we're going to talk about the ripple that we create when we're just consistent. And we've invited two people to speak on this idea today that exude this idea of consistency. The first one is my best friend, Aaron Barth. Aaron. Aaron's a founding father of Moore Church. He's going to talk about consistency. What I know about Aaron is that's what he is. If anything is consistent, he's there. He's going to show up and be faithful time and time again. When we first started the church back in 2010, Aaron and Whitney just showed up as volunteers. And Aaron jumped right in to be on our setup and teardown team. And he was out there with me and a bunch of guys loading a truck every single week. And we were digging through some photos. And I found a picture of Aaron coming down the ramp out of the back of the truck almost 15 years ago. Well, look at him. Look, he's like, yeah, just put that thing in the truck. But do you know what? The same character of a guy who showed up as a volunteer shows up now every Sunday as an executive pastor of this church. And here's a picture of Aaron just a few weeks ago as we had a mess. And he said, I'll get a broom, I'll get a mop, I'll clean some stuff up. And can I tell you, this guy has been faithfully, consistently serving God. And that's why he has the fruit in his life that he does. But after Aaron, we're doing a tag team series. Coming in from the high ropes is one of my best friends. Chien is going to come and preach this morning. If you don't know Amy yet, you are about to be blessed to get to know her because she is kind. She's an encourager. She's always having a good time. She'd be laughing at my jokes when they're not even funny. She's the best. Amy and I have been friends now for coming up on 25 years. You know you're getting old when you start saying 20 years to stuff you actually remember. We've been friends for a long time. When I was a youth pastor, Amy was my volunteer administrator. I'm telling you, this lady saved me from getting fired at least 100 times. She was covering my stuff, helped me forever, and we planted Moore Church back here in the Metroplex. The very first phone call I made was to Amy. And I said, Amy, we're coming back to the Metroplex. Please come and help us get this church off the ground. And she's been here faithfully serving. When we first started, before our launch date, we would do these events out at the park where we would set up these bounce houses I borrowed from another pastor, and we'd set them in the park. And I found this picture of Amy and Whitney back before our even launch date, where they're serving at a park, setting up bounce houses, welcoming families, inviting them to church. And then just a couple weeks ago, we were doing our Christmas parade. Not our Christmas parade, the city of Arlington, not yet, right? The city of Arlington, Moore Church parade. I might have just prophesied something, I don't know. That's crazy. And so we were at the Arlington Christmas parade, and Arlington asked us if we would run their whole kids area, and we said yes. And I saw this photo of Amy 15 years later, still here serving at a bounce house. I got my next photo of Amy. There she is, still serving all day. Same job, 15 years later. You know what that's called? Consistency. it's easy to want to jump from one thing to the next thing. I don't want to preach because they're about to preach, but we want to just jump from thing to thing to thing. But what if you just stayed planted where God has put you? What would God do in your life? All right, so up first is my friend, Aaron Barth. Get ready. Put your hands together. He's about to preach.
Let's go.
Come on, baby.
Hey, you warmed them up for me. More church. Good to see everybody in this house this morning. Y'all look good. Man, I am so excited and honored, really, to be able to get up and speak about the ripple effect when it comes to consistency. And before I jump in, though, I want to give praise where praise is due, and that is to my friend, my pastor, Pastor Trustin, Pastor Rachel. Thank you guys. You guys have built a very special, unique house. And those of us that have been able to see any other church do the things they do, but see how this church is made and how it runs and functions, it's a testament to your consistency, and I'm thankful for you. Not only as as my pastor, but as my friends. We've been through the highs, we've been through the lows. We're ride or die, baby. I love you guys. I'm thankful for you, super thankful for you. But I also have to give it up to my better half, my pride and joy, my love. 23 years, baby. Golly, it's been a long time. That's been a ride. It's been amazing. But I'm thankful. You make me. It's been amazing. You make me a better man. Let's make sure we get that out. You do. You make me a better man. I'm thankful for you. I'm blessed to have you in my life. I'm thankful for you. My kids, my offspring. I'm so proud of you, Easton, McKinley, and Brady. I'm so thankful for you guys. You make it easy. You're a blessing. It's amazing to see the fruit a man produces, but it's so much more gratifying seeing what your offspring does with their lives. And they're young, but they're grown. Like y'all know in this house, they're grown and they're doing some amazing things. I am biased 100%, but I think I am not alone in seeing the amazing things that God is doing in and through my children. You're a blessing. And I'm thankful for you every day. Every day I'm thankful for you, Easton, Brady, McKinley. Thank you. I love you. My mom and dad are here in this house, right over here, Jerry and Jane Barth. Thank you, Dad. He's serving, of course he is. And then my mom is here too. Thank you guys for showing consistency even when I didn't want it. And we're about to get into that. So again, thank you for everybody, and thank you for me indulging for a moment with my people. So I grew up in rural Ohio. I'm not a Texas born and raised. I got here as soon as I could. But I did grow up in rural Ohio. My grandparents, they had a dairy farm. They raised Charolais cattle. We spent a lot of time working and having fun over there at their house. My uncle raised and broke quarter horses where he trained them, and I spent a lot of time over there as well. So we were in rural Ohio. Again, not in the city whatsoever. We had our own 8 acres of land in Ohio, and with that came a large garden. Now, this wasn't a garden where you just step out the back door and 3 steps over, there's your garden. It wasn't like that. We had a house with a barn behind it, and then behind the barn was the garden. So we're talking house, 1 football field away, then you're at the garden. That's how far away it is. And so in Ohio, there wasn't in irrigation, in-ground irrigation, there wasn't that. This was the irrigator. I was the irrigation. I had 2 buckets. My brother had 2 buckets, 5-gallon buckets. We filled it up with water at the house. We'd walk the football field length, and then we'd get to our garden, and we'd water all of the plants in the garden. And then we'd go back, and we'd do it again, and then we'd do it again and again. I felt like it never ended. It was days and weeks and months, and I could pray for rain in Ohio because that meant I got out of doing the irrigation my own self. But there was plenty of times that I did that. Also, every Sunday, we were consistent in going to church. Back then, church was Sunday morning, church was Sunday night, church was Wednesday night, and it was wash and repeat. It was every week. That's the way it was. And so we got to understand church at an early age, and we were there. I think there was a threshold, maybe 102 temperature or above. You might got to stay home if you were sick, but if it was below that, you take Dayquil and you're going to church, baby. You got to be there, right? It's kind of how it went, or at least how I felt it went. So, here we are at the back end of January, about to jump into February. Everybody knows, all my football fans in the house, playoffs are among us now. That's happening right now, and Super Bowl is right around the corner. Throw back to whenever I was a kid, my brother and I would go to church with mom and dad, and a cold February Sunday back in Ohio when it snowed. One year I remember it snowed, and my brother and I were told to go out and play after we got home from church in the morning. So my brother and I would go out and play. We spent hours outside playing, and our playing, we came up with a strategy, a game plan, if you will. We took all the snow that we could find, we packed it up behind the garage, so that when you open the garage door, there's this giant wall of snow that we spent hours making. And my brother and I are thinking, hey, we're about to get out of this church thing tonight. We're about to watch the Super Bowl at home. Get your popcorn ready. Let's get it, right? So the time came in which all of us gathered up, got in the car. My brother and I are like, yeah, right, we're not going nowhere. Well, my dad pulls back and hits it. And then he pulls forward, and you're like, huh. And he puts in reverse again, and he plows through all of that snow that my brother and I spent hours building up. He said, oh, we're going. As for me and my house, we are going to church. That's kind of how I felt. And I'm like, geez, man. So I didn't know what the team was that year, and who won, who lost, I don't even know. But I do know that we were in church that Sunday night. I thought this regular routine of water buckets and going to church even when the Super Bowl was being played, I thought this regular routine was boring, lame, mundane. I mean, come on. They got me up here talking about consistency, y'all. And it ain't sexy. It don't sound sexy. It's not sexy, but it's powerful, and I'm super excited that I get to speak about it today. So it did. It left a ripple effect in my life. And set me up to be a man of consistency. So as I'm preparing for this, I'm thinking, okay, well, what is consistency? What do these people need to hear about consistency? Well, of course, you look up the text definition of it, and it's the quality of always behaving or performing in a similar way. So the outcome is usually pretty similar. Your approach is the same at trying to achieve it, right? So it's not fancy. It's not a feeling, because it's hard, and sometimes we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. But being faithful and consistent, it leads to good things. So listen, this is the disclaimer. This is not Aaron's guide to life. This is not my opinion on how to be successful. It's not any of those things. What this is me pointing to the Bible and talking about what is spoken about consistency in the Bible. So the first scripture that I have that came to mind today is 1 Corinthians 15:58. Be steadfast and immovable. Sounds consistent to me. James 5:12. Let your yes be yes, and let your no be no. And lastly, Revelation 3:15. Be hot or be cold, but not what? Yes. Don't be lukewarm. Don't be this. To me, when I'm thinking, what does this mean to me? This means don't be wishy-washy. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't have an approach to tackle a challenge or a situation on this day, but then on this day, I'm going to take a completely different approach to tackling that challenge or solution. No, don't be wishy-washy. Do what you're going to do and stick with it and be consistent with it. If you say you do it, if you're going to do it, if you say you're going to do it, then do it. Do it. Do it. Follow through. So here we are in January, like I said. Right now, the workout, they're full of people. They're full of people. They got these hot New Year's resolutions. They're going to get it in 2025. And so what's going to happen in February, though? You know. You're going to go to the gym in February, and you're going to look around, and you're going to find that treadmill that was taken up all through January, and it's going to be free. It's going to be open because people are going to quit. They're going to give up. That's what's going to happen. But consistency, just like the small buckets that produce fruit and our vegetables for our family the entire year, small steps of consistency, they create big effects of life and legacy. So what are you consistent in? We're all consistent in something. We're creatures of habit, right? We have some sort of routine, even when you're younger. I mean, you'll get up, you put your socks on, you put your clothes on, you get ready for school, you grab something to eat, you brush your teeth. If you're able to drive to school, you drive to school. Do you take a different route to work every time you go to work? No. No. Or school. You don't do that. You usually have a routine of your life, and that's how these things go. We also all have goals and dreams and plans, things that we want to acquire or accomplish or conquer. But the key is found in where your priorities lie. So you are consistent in what you prioritize, aren't you? You are consistent. You're not going to take a priority of something that you don't really care much about, right? You're going to, if it's a high priority to you, you will do what it takes again and again and again. You'll do what it takes, right? So yeah, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize sports, work, weekends with friends? Everybody's working for the weekend. You know that song, right? The youngers, they don't know what that song is. But listen, hey, earlier on in my teens and 20s, I won't lie, I prioritized sports. I was involved in sports. I watched sports. I built snowbanks to try to watch sports. I did what I could. Shoot, listen, your boy's from Ohio. And all the Texas Longhorns fans in this house, I'm sorry about what happened on Friday. I had two ways to take these notes. I could go this way when the Ohio State Buckeyes won, or I could go this way when the Texas Longhorns won. And so thankfully I'm going this way. But listen, I prioritize those things. But how much do I prioritize those things? Do they alter other things in my life? Or are other things still higher priority than those types of things? So you can have hobbies, you can have things that you love, you could do these things, but how important are they? That's what matters. That's what matters. So do you prioritize those things, or do you prioritize the things that really matter, that have a long-lasting effect? Your relationship with the Lord, your relationship with your spouse or your kids, your family. Are those the things that you prioritize most? Your church, your finances, your health. And listen, I know consistency, it can create conflicts. It can create conflicts. The whole sports versus church thing, you asked Jerry Barth if it created conflict in our house. I promise you, he'll tell you straight truth. It did. It does. It can create conflicts. Work versus family. If your goal and priority is to get to the corner office, the C-suite, and running junk as a big boss, that's going to likely take away from other things in your life. So you've got to prioritize accordingly. If you stay up too late and you're too tired to make it to church, or you had one too many drinks the night before, are you still determined to go? Are you still, man, I can't even think straight. I'm dizzy still. Am I still getting up and I'm still getting a glass of water and getting some pills in me and getting to church? Am I still doing that? I pray that you are. But these are the things, right? These are the things. So these things that you have priorities in, what are you doing with them? Like it or not, realize it or not, everything in life is a lifelong investment. Everything in life. Our habits, they are investments. We are investing time with our habits. So we invest in shows, right? Golly, we've gotten into series where they're 4 or 5 seasons long. And each season is what? 8, 10 episodes. Do the math. How many hours of your life are you spending sitting there and watching a series? And I make the joke, because it's kind of an old man joke, but I'll tell these guys, I'm like, so do you remember 3 months later what that series was about? Or what happened in all that time that we invested watching that show, watching those series? Do you remember that? Do we even remember that? It's hard. Sometimes it's hard. So, what are you putting your time in? Consistency, it requires a decision. It requires a decision. If I said yes, then my decision is yes. Yes is yes, no is no, remember? If I said yes, then my decision is, it's not wishy-washy. It's not, I said yes, but I meant, maybe, kind of, if I'm feeling up for it. It's not. It's yes is yes, no is no. But you make a decision to continue with my yes no matter what. You continue with it. Decide on who I will be and who I will not be. It's a decision to have consistency of character. I'm the same guy everywhere. I am the same guy at my office as I am here. Now, a lot of you that have gotten to know me even a little bit know that I'm this loud, excited, funny, sometimes, except when I'm not, outgoing, right? I am that person. Yes, I am that person. But also when I'm at my job, I'm an executive in an airport, in a number of airports in Fort Worth. I've been there 15 years. I love it. I used to fly airplanes, but now I'm able to run airports. It's amazing. It's amazing. I just celebrated 15 years with the City of Fort Worth Aviation Department. They're the best. I love working there. But how many of you know that I'm not coming into my workplace and cheering on and yelling and hollering and smiling and cracking jokes and high-fiving every day in my office? I'm not doing that. But I am the same person. I am the same person. I just am able to have some refinement and be able to have, but also consistency in my life so that way people know that I'm not wishy-washy. They know that I'm the same guy here as I am there, and they know who lives in and through me. So, what is the end goal? Your decisions plot the course of your life, not your talent, not your abilities, not your what's in your wheelhouse. It's your consistency. And yeah, again, things that you're striving to be consistent in may not be in your wheelhouse, may not be easy for you or to you, but you got to press on no matter what. Your decision plots the course of your life. Not your talent. Yeah. I've learned that years and years now. For me, when I went to college and flight school, I moved to Tulsa. I made that choice for me. I graduated high school. I lived with my parents, obviously, and then I moved out, and I went to flight school. It was 1,200 miles away, 1,200 miles away from home. So I go to a place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to flight school, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. I didn't know the lay of the land. I didn't know anything. I had to make a choice. Obviously, I was there to go to college. I was there to get educated and learn how to fly airplanes. But I had a choice to make. Was I going to live like a hood rat on Saturday nights and sleep in every Sunday morning and not worry about going to church and not do anything in church? Or was I going to do what I did my whole life and be raised in church and find a church community? And I'm thankful that that's what I did. Because when I did, that's when I met that one right there, my wife, in church. You know, there's multiple ways to go about it, but what better place to find the love of your life than in church? And so, super excited about that, you know. But I made that, I understand now, I made that choice for me. It wasn't my mom and dad calling me at Saturday night at 8 p.m. or Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and saying, hey, are you awake? Are you going to church? Where are you going to go to church at? They didn't do that. They didn't do that. When I left, and they left my decisions to me. But again, raising up in a home of consistency, it was second nature. That's what I needed to do. And so just to park here for a second, parents in the room, I'm glad you're here today. Good job. You're here. Now be here next week. Be here the week after that. String it together. I'm serious. String it together because your kids are watching. They're watching you. And while they're young, you are making the decisions. Parents, you are the ones making the decisions. Just like you tell them to brush your teeth. You don't want them having root canals and teeth falling out and all that. You tell them to brush your teeth. Tell them to come to church. That's what's going to happen. All the excuses in the book, I've heard them. I've had them for years. Oh, it's too cold. Oh, it's rainy. Oh, got sniffles with child number 2. Oh, yeah, we had a rough time last night. We didn't sleep very well. All these excuses. Screw that. Forget about it. Get here. You get here. You get them here. Because when you get to 102 temperature back in Ohio, there's all the excuses. There's all the reasons as to why I shouldn't come to church. I don't want to spread anything. I don't want to get anybody else sick. No. Everybody's going to be fine. Everybody's going to be fine. Be consistent. Dang, that was a soapbox. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. What pattern are you putting into your kids? That was a pattern that I grew up living in. My small decision to go to church met my wife and has set a trajectory of my life. I made decisions. When I got married, we decided we were going to surround ourselves with the right people, godly people, God-centered people. In our finances, we're going to be generous. We're going to tithe regularly and not live above our means. In our family, we were going to make sure God was in the center of it. The scripture, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We put God first, and we still do. In my 40s, I'm thinking, man, these things are going south. I got to get things in gear. I focused on my fitness more so than I did in my 20s and 30s. These were decisions that I predetermined, I pre-made before any other options even showed up. And that's important because you're going to have options, y'all. You're going to live your life, you're going to walk through it, and you're going to have options present themselves to you. What are you going to do with those options? And are they going to be good for you, positive ripples or negative ripples in your life? What are you going to do with them? Once I made that decision, then consistency requires discipline. Consistency requires discipline. Man, this is where the hard part comes in. You can make a decision. I can make a decision of going to the gym and getting a six-pack. That's a great decision. That's a great decision. The discipline that follows it is the hard part. That's the hard part, okay? In Hebrews 12, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it does produce a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to get up and read your Bible every day, does it? It doesn't feel good to go to the gym 5 days a week or eat spinach for breakfast like I oftentimes do. It doesn't feel good to sit on the front row and every Sunday listen to my best friend preach a message. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't especially feel good when my wife's preaching and we had been in an argument the night before. It doesn't feel good to sit and listen through that. Usually she has something to get me with, usually. It doesn't feel good to drive a 10-year-old paid-off car when I'm driving to work and some dude with a brand new ride zips by me and I'm like, man, that guy, that's a car. Well, what am I in? That doesn't feel good. It doesn't. But everything in life is a lifelong investment. It's slow, it's steady. Oh, does that sound boring? It's slow and steady. It's steadfast and immovable. That sounds better. And in order to get that, you've got to be slow and steady. These small steps lead to the big effects. The big effects. Great things are not going to happen quickly unless you win the lottery. But still, I might not be a great thing. Discipline is the ability to start and take and sustain action, even when you don't want to. Even when you don't want to. Consistency is that discipline over time. Growth and time, or growth and change, they take a lot of time. So working out, going to work and being a good boss and investing in your employees, coming home and even when you're tired, helping your wife with dishes and helping her with dinner. These are things that are worthy investments. They are. Coming to church. I was consistent in the discipline of not only coming to church, y'all, good job, you came to church, but where are you involved in church? Where are you involved in church? Those are two different things. Going to church is a great habit, but just going there, there's so much more. All I can say is I'm living proof. My children are living proof. There's so much more. If you don't just come and attend, but you be a part, that you be involved in, I could spend so much time there, but I won't because there's so much more that I have to say. Earlier on, before we even moved down here in 2009, we were involved in church. I played drums and other things at our church before we came down here. And then we came down and we operated out of a rental facility. So we're doing setup and tear down. And I'll tell you, as a person who had a job 5 days a week, I had to be there at 7:30 in the morning for my workplace. I had to get up early. So I had 2 days out of the week that I was able to do whatever I wanted with them, Saturday and Sunday. But one of those days, I chose to set up and tear down, which had me up earlier than I was waking up for my own job. That was hard, y'all. That was hard. But man, am I glad I did that. And it wasn't just me. I woke up, my wife got up with me. We got up and set up and tear down. Then my kids, when they were little, we were down here on our own. We didn't have grandma down the street. We didn't have, a built-in babysitter. They came with us. And when they came with us, they helped serve with us. And I'm thankful that my best friend had the ability of seeing that at the time and saying, yes, you guys, we need you, but bring your kids. We'll find them something to do. And they always found them something to do. Even when they broke stuff or when they screwed something up, they still found them something to do. And am I grateful for that or what? Because most of you in the room know what my kids do. My daughter's leading worship. My son's running stuff and fixing stuff all over the place. They are in this house, not just attending, but serving. We are serving. It's important. It's important. And And one of the challenges I'll give today, dads in the room, listen up. We get to make the decisions for our kids and our family, especially when they're young. Especially when they're young, dads, you decide. You set the temperature on the thermos. You set it. So if you're setting it and you're making a priority to being in this house and also getting involved in this house, watch what happens. My wife says it all the time. We say it at our home all the time. Those that are raised and grown in this house of the Lord, they will flourish. You watch. It's a big deal. It's such a big deal. It made that choice easier for my kids' decisions and disciplines in their life as they became older and older adults in their adulthood. So as they're adults, I'll take you back a few years. Whenever my son made it to high school, and Mansfield High School, they have an amazing golf team in high school. He made it as a freshman, which is a big deal for those that might have any idea about golf. He made it there on the team as a freshman. He's gifted. He's talented in golf. I watched him, and I hate seeing how he can play better than me when he was still in his teenage years. I hate that because, yeah, your dad wants to show you up. No, he did. He's a great golfer, and everybody who's played with him understands that. However, when he was in his first year of golf, he realized how much time and effort it took on the golf course to be great. He realized that. And so he had a decision to make. Whitney and I, we did not participate in this decision. We talked with him about it, but he made the decision of what he wanted to do with that. So what he did was he took a step back from golf, and he, because it was taking away time that he wanted to spend in this house to help and to serve in this house. He decided that. And parents in the room that want your kids to be sports stars or at least get somewhere to get on scholarship somewhere so you're not having to pay through the nose for college, guess what? Mom and dads, that one over there got a scholarship somewhere else, and it wasn't even in sports. It wasn't even in sports. So God provides. That's all I'm trying to say. God provides. If you make him a priority, you watch and see what happens. It's amazing. Consistency requires determination. It's true. For me, my determination, it could be used as another word, stubbornness. How many stubborn people are in the room? I know I am that. I am stubborn. My peeps, my family, my friends, they know that I'm a stubborn man. I'm thankful that I was stubborn because, listen, flying airplanes, when I went to flight school, that's hard. Benji knows. It ain't easy. And, man, am I glad I was stubborn because there was times that I wanted to cut and quit and leave, but I was fortunate to be stubborn. The days that you don't want to go are the days that he speaks and heals and does the most. When Whitney and I are usually here when the doors are open, this is not anything new. This is something we've done years and years for as long as we've been married. We oftentimes say it to each other, it's resistance before the breakthrough. Resistance before the breakthrough. Okay, so we're here on Sunday mornings, but then when we have encounter nights on Sunday nights, or when we have some sort of special event during the week that we'll come here for, sometimes we get to come to the ending of Reengage. There are things that occur, and listen, I'm busy, y'all. I'm busy. I got a job. I've got tasks. I got things to do at home. I got things to do with my family. We're all busy. And so there's plenty of resistance. There's plenty of reasons why I can say, listen, tonight I can't do it tonight. I'm spent. I've got a big week coming up. I just can't. I can't do it. But let me tell you something. Every time, over the years, every time we would fight through that resistance and we came, guess what? God had something special. God showed me personally breakthrough in me, in my loved ones, or in people around me. And so resistance before the breakthrough. You're going to have resistance in the things that you might want to do, but just you watch. God will bring that breakthrough. It happened. It's happened through us and in us time and time again. So when I'm determined, God rewards. He does. Consistency requires determination because the older you get, the more the complex problems become. Now, I've got okay, here we go. I got a couple that are in the room that I know where they are in their college education. So I'm going to give an example, and if I'm wrong, you just sit on it and talk to me about it later. But listen, years ago when I went to flight school, there are things that you learn right from the start. There are things that you learn. There are things that you do and you don't do. There are things that you kind of create baselines in your your fundamentals in your education. You do that with really anything in your life. But one of the first things that I was taught when I got into the cockpit, when I started actually learning how to fly an airplane, was your rotation speed. And rotation speed is when you transition from, oh, look at that. Oh, man, there's a picture of it. I'm in the cockpit. I don't know who that is still, who's standing there. I don't know who that is, but I'm in the cockpit about to fly that airplane. And so that's a throwback. But when you're rotating, you're leaving the ground and you're transitioning into the air. That's when you rotate, okay? Rotation for us in a Cessna 150 was 50 knots. So we would constantly be walking around and say, rotate at 50 knots, rotate at 50 knots, because that was like our baseline. That was where we lived. That was the fundamental, the truth of what we know, what we needed to do. And so fast forward when I start learning more complex things in my education of flying airplanes, when I lose an engine, when I don't have a landing gear that will come down like it should, when I have a pneumatic failure, when I have an engine fire, when there's all these more complex situations, we would tell ourselves, just rotate at 50. Just remember your baseline. Just know where you live. Know what to do. Fly the airplane first. These are the things that we do. These are the things. So whatever you're going on, parents in the room, adults in the room, we know. The problems, the challenges get more complex the older we get and the more we live, right? It's not as easy as deciding what I'm going to have, a turkey sandwich or pizza at the high school lunch line. It's not that easy anymore. It's not. And so we've got to make more complex decisions. But if you set up the right kind of consistency in your life, you're going to have the right kind of baseline. You're going to have the right kind of fundamentals. And I promise you, it'll lead you down the right direction. If you're in this house, if you're listening, if you're participating, when the storm comes, not if the storm comes, but when the storm comes in your life, you will have a foundation. You will have a foundation. There's stories in the room, and I'm looking out, and there's people in the room that are going through storms right now, that have just gone through them. They're going through them right now. They're going to go through them, and I can tell you, they've been here. I know that they've been here, and they're consistent. And so whatever that storm is, whatever happens, I'm praying for them, but I know that God's got them because they're putting their consistency in the Lord, and He's going to reward them for that. And I know that. I promise. That's a promise from God. So will you be determined to be consistent? Will you be determined in it? For me, fortunately, in the storms that I've had, I was able to be consistent. Earlier on, when I was flying airplanes, corporate flight department usually goes first in an economic downturn, and I was the product of that. I lost my job once, maybe twice, when that's happened, and not easy, and that'll rattle you. This is who I am. This is what I went to school for. This is what I'm supposed to do, right? And it will shake you. Years later, I lost my brother, my only sibling, in a tragic motorcycle accident. He left behind a wife and 3 kids, and left our family shook. We were shook because God had plans for us, but He had plans for them, and it's amazing, the redemption story that's taken place since, but it will shake you. So when you have storms in your life, what foundation of consistency have you built for yourself? What have you built? What have you made? What do you have? I could have, if I lived another life up to this point, I could have ended up going to the bar and getting drunk every night and just drowning out my sorrows in a bottle. I could have done that. I probably had a right to. I probably could have said, I have a right to do that. I'm going to do that. I could have done that. But the consistency that I had built and that was built for me in my life didn't even make that as an option. And so, again, you're here. And so my hope is that you guys will start establishing, if you haven't already, some positive consistency when it comes to ripple effects. Be determined to stick with your principles that you've already decided no matter what. Your consistency, it does create a legacy, but it takes one step at a time. Even if consistency didn't start at 8 years old with 2 5-gallon buckets of water, you could start one. You could start one. I don't care how old you are, you could start one. It isn't too late for any of you. It isn't too late for me. It's about you, but also about those following you. You're creating ripples. Moms, dads, you're creating ripples. and people are seeing those ripples. When Whitney and I were volunteering and serving in this church for years, when the kids were little, they would look at us and they would see me as my best self. They would see me up and happy and excited and talkative to people. And same for Whitney when they were little. And guess what? They watched that, and that's what they wanted to be. That's how they wanted to be. It looks, mom is happy, dad is happy. If you're showing your best self in this house, they're going to want to do that too, right? If we're showing up to work or school or whatever, and we're just begrudging and upset about it and not wanting to do it, all these things, do you think they're going to want to do that? They're not going to want to do that. They're going to do what makes their parents happy. Because why? Because it will make them happy. And that is what happens. It's what happens. So what ripples are you going to make? What ripples are you going to make? And who are you going to make them with? Those things matter. One of the people that Whitney and I have gotten the pleasure to make ripples with over the years is our friend Amy Chien. You're going to hear from her in just a minute. We've known Amy for almost 15 years. And she's a woman of God, y'all. She's a sweetheart. And the cool thing about Amy is that she started here at the beginning as well. But she didn't live down the street like we did. She didn't live in Mansfield where we started the church. She lived far. She lived in Dallas and in Louisville, like 45 minutes. But she was here every Sunday. Without fail, every Sunday she came, and she was consistent. And that was not just for a season of 6 months to a year. She did for like 3 to 5 years. It was remarkable. So I want to bring her out. Give it up for Amy Chien. Come on, Amy. Land this thing. Come on.
Hey, y'all. Wasn't Aaron so good? I loved hearing him, first service and second. He's just brought so many great truths, and I'm so thankful. So my name is Amy. I have a picture of my sweet family that's going to come up here. They're actually right up there, see? But I am so thankful that I've gotten to come to church here for a long time. So first, I wanted to say thank you to my friends, Pastor Trust and Pastor Rachel. They mentioned that we've known each other for almost 25 years because naturally we met when we were like infants. No. Not really, actually, but that just means that we've got the opportunity to say that they are consistent in everything that they have done the last 20 plus years. So if you weren't sure if they're the same people on Sunday morning that they are at 3 a.m. Walmart trips, they are. They have, Tristan has always been a Jeep-loving, party-starting, just fun person to be around. And one thing that I love so much is that he has always been someone who will give all he is and all he has to reach all the people. And so whether or not it was across the world in South Africa, taking teenagers to random desolate areas of the world, or whether or not it was in downtown Dallas doing homeless ministry and everything else, he has always been someone who understands that great commission of going into all the world and spreading the good news of Jesus, which is amazing. And then also Pastor Rachel, I got to meet her all those years ago too. And what I love so much is she has always had the biggest and best smile. It goes all the way to her eyes. She has so much joy, but she always has such a bold faith too. So she would tell these amazing stories of God's provision in her family. And I love so much that we started this church with on the basis of the word in Ephesians 3:20 that says God is able to do immeasurably more than we can think or imagine, because Rachel is imaginative and she can come up with some pretty good stuff. So he can do much more than what even Rachel can imagine with her big faith. But one thing I love too is one of her values that goes all the way to her core is she has always treated everyone like they're her someone. And so she's been so thankful, whether it's the server who brings you water refills or the person who cleans up at the end. She's always been so thankful for the people and the job that they do, and known that everyone has something to give and is appreciative of what they give and their uniqueness. I do have a picture of their wedding that we're going to put up here because it's a little bit like Where's Waldo. There's a lot of people going, a lot of things going on in here. So if you note, Pastor Tim is up here. If you can spot him, he's like in the lower quadrant here. I don't know how I found myself directly next to Pastor Trustin, but I am like right there. That was my short hair era that Vincent has seen pictures of, and he's like, maybe don't do that again. Just kidding. But yeah, so I've gotten to know them over the years, but what I do know is that their consistency of their character is woven into the house values of this church. And so when you look at our house values, it is a lot to do with who they are and who they've been and who other people have been in this church. And so we thank you for that and for doing a firm foundation. So he mentioned that he gave me a phone call and said, hey, can you come help me out at this church? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. No problem. Where is it? And he's like, Mansfield, Texas. And I'm like, where is that? So I was living in downtown Dallas, in like Lower East Side. If anybody knows, then you know, Old East Dallas. But it was like about a 45-minute to an hour drive, depending on what was going on that day. And he's like, you don't got to stay. I just need your help launching and getting off the ground. And then once we get momentum, then you just make your own choice. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I was really excited for two reasons. One, I really miss my friends because they had moved away. But two, I needed a place to be completely connected to because I was like not all the way plugged in, not all the way connected where I was at. So it was a great time for me. That is when I got to meet the Barths. And so just like they mentioned, they have been bringing their tiny little babies to church with them. I do have a picture. I was going to put a picture of Whitney and Aaron, but they haven't aged one day in 15 years. So y'all would just be like, wait, wasn't that just yesterday? So, but who has aged is little Miss McKinley, because here she's 6 years old. And what I love so much about seeing this picture and doing the math and like figuring out how old she is that she's 6 in this picture, and my son Sammy is 6. And just this last Christmas, he got to be in the Jingle Jam choir, where Pastor McKinley got to pour into him, and I didn't even connect the two about how cool it was that I got to serve in littles and be able to be part of her story too. And so it's really cool to see that full circle, and it's even more than I hoped or imagined is like playing out there. And so one thing that's really cool about the Barth family, they definitely were here every time the doors were open, the whole family, but they were first to come, last to leave, and they were so faithful and dedicated to serve with everything that they had, but they also embody that value of know each other and be known. So I remember every single week they were meeting new people. They were inviting them to lunch. I don't know how many times they probably went to lunch with people and they were like, I don't exactly know what we have in common, but we're going to make it work. And I want to know everything there is to know about you, right? But they are just so easy to love. Like you saw Aaron up here today. He's just so easy to love. And they're so easy to relate to. So I thank you for your willingness and vulnerability too. And I can't move on without also saying that coming to More was so cool because I got to reconnect with Tim and Beth. When we last parted, Tim was a former employee. I was his boss. He could not bring himself to use the dress code that was in writing. Like, he would not a pair of non-holy jeans to save his life. My boss was like, if you don't tell Tim again to wear some pants without some holes, you're gonna have to fire him. And I was like, I'm not gonna fire Tim. I'm just not gonna do it. So you could put the picture of Tim on here. And what I love about this picture is when this is MCOG back here, this is like original. But I am almost sure that Easton is probably in this picture, just non-pictured, because he's like running the sound. Like he was running the sound at like 8 years old. So he's got a lot of on-the-job training for the job that he's doing today. I would consider him a subject matter expert at this point. But so much so, I love this because he wasn't in the first service, so I got to really make my point clear, is that not only do they lead from the front row now, but he's led from the back 40, from the side building, from the portable, from the makeshift, building that's like random sheets of paper that are like up against a wall blocking the wind in the freezing cold. Might not be cold to Ohioans, but it's cold to Texans and around here. So, but it's so consistent, leading from the front row. And really, it's been an honor to have you lead me and have those roles reversed for sure. Yes, thank you so much. So I love that Aaron really hit it home when he said consistency is like not cool, right? It's like not flashy, because I was like, when I was a little kid and someone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, it wasn't consistent, right? Like might be like rich, famous, like consistent wasn't on my little MASH thing that I was doing in the 90s. My little MASH spiral did not include consistency, but it is such an honor to be able to speak today about it, because looking back, I realized how important it was to have firm foundation and to make daily decisions that reiterated really the course of my life and who I wanted to be. So consistency builds confidence. So I've got Hebrews 13, 6 through 8, and really confidence builds resistance, but it says here in Hebrews so we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper and I will not be afraid. Remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of the way of life and imitate their faith. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. When I first read this, I honestly was like, can we just put 6 and 8 and just like omit 7 because it's not really applicable? Because the point was, I have confidence in the Lord because he's the same yesterday and today and forever. But then when I went back and looked and reread it, verse number 7 is what we're talking about. It's the ripple effect. So I'll read it again. It says, remember your leaders who spoke with the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so this is so awesome that they really got this principle from the Bible on how we can influence and affect those around us. So consistency is important. It builds rapport, it builds trust, it builds credibility. I know if anybody has tried to purchase a new home, your mortgage lender is looking at things that makes you look like you're consistent, right? Your consistency in how you paid your bills is going to affect your interest rate and your ability to get a home. Like, there's a lot of reasons why consistency is practical and important. But saying all that to say, Aaron and I both, when we were talking, we couldn't just say like, well, now that I'm consistent. We had to go back and go, how do we even get here, right? Like, how did we get labeled the consistent people, right? The people who were qualified to talk about consistency. And that is when we go back and look, and just like Aaron was saying, it's those little decisions that have set us up for success. They've set us up with this foundation to be able to continue and carry on. So I am very thankful to say that I grew up in a home where I had a mom and a dad, and they took me to church. And I can stop right there and just say that was so awesome. Like, as a kid, I did not think that was awesome. I didn't know it was awesome. I didn't know how privileged I was to be able to have parents who loved me. Like, there's a lot of people in the world who can't say that. I'm so sorry for you that you can't say that. Not sorry for you. I'm sorry that you didn't get to have that, but you can be that. And I'm so thankful that I had that, but I also don't want to come up here and have you say, well, I can't relate to their stories, so this is not for me. Because just like Pastor Whitney did such a great job with the visualization from this summer, the series A Book for Me and the Firm Foundation, she's up here building a wall of these firm foundations, these scriptures, these verses, these victories in your life, in your friend's life, in your family's life. And even if you didn't start with it half built because people have been building it for you for years to come, even if you're a first generation Christian in your family, it's get moving, get going, let's do it, let's build it. Like, you can do it even on your own. So that's kind of where I started, right? Like, I had a foundation. My parents took me to church. I actually started going to a different church with my cousin because my parents' church, my brother and I were the only people of our age generation. And I kind of think my parents were the only ones of their generation, if you know what I'm saying. So we were like aged out on the other side. And so they got us into a church where we could be plugged in and we could relate to people our own age. But it was still a hassle, right? Like it was an investment for them and me for taking me really far away to a different church they weren't going to. It was an investment of my youth leaders who very kindly, very graciously, would drop me off at my house until my brother started driving because he's older, so he had to carry me around. But it was so great that I had that. And it wasn't until I didn't have those pillars in my life that I really recognized how important they were to me, right? So thankfully, Aaron found himself far away from home in a new city at the age of 18. I was more like 25 before I had my pillars shaken, which is probably good because I needed that extra time to marinate before I was on my own. But for me, I stayed plugged into the church that I went as a youth, right? So I went as a youth in junior high to a church that I wound up volunteering at with Pastor Trustin. And then I eventually came on staff. So I was there for a very long time, from like 96. Because I was born in the 1900s. So I went to that church from like 1996 all the way to like 2008, right? So this is a really long time. But I just had this like ground shaking, pillars moved situation where a lot of my friends who I served alongside with, who my accountability partners, my mentors, honestly, the people who were feeding me in my relationship with the Lord, they all moved to Houston. They all moved away. And then at times I felt kind of like out on my own. Like, ain't nobody asking me to go to Houston. Like, they didn't need me to do what they're doing there, you know? But then I also felt like, what do I do now? Who am I without them? And so that's what it really was a decision time for me and like a heart check is, was I more interested, was I more invested in my relationship with them or my relationship with him? I'm so glad. Now, hindsight, I'm so glad that I kind of didn't have anyone to help me along there because I had been relying on other people for too long, right? And so I'm 25 years old at this point, which is old enough to know better. But that's really the first time I had this decision in my life to say, am I going to take ownership and responsibility of my own relationship with the Lord? This is like the crossroads for me at the time. And thankfully I did. Just like Aaron said, it was modeled for me, but I didn't want to stand on my parents' faith. And I wasn't able to stand on my friends' faith. And so now I needed to put on my big girl boots and make it on my own, right? I had to build consistency, build discipline, and make those daily decisions that actually worked out so much better in the end, right? So again, I was very thankful for the timing of Pastor Trustin and Rachel coming back in the area because there was a couple years, it was a slog, right? I'm in a new city. I moved to downtown Dallas. I'm at this new career, and I really don't have a lot of friends. And the people I was finding myself around, they were not Christ-loving, iron sharpens irons relationship. And so I didn't really have a lot of connections and community. So when they came back, I'm like, yeah, I'll drive 45 minutes and help you out. Well, then immediately it's like home, and we love each other and love everyone that was coming, and so thankful to have something that I could be part of that was really bigger than me, because for a long time I felt alone and isolated and independent, but I also felt like I needed to be part of something bigger than me, and so I was thankful for the opportunity to serve and felt very needed. You are very needed. If you didn't know, there's a lot of people that go to church here, but we still need a lot of people to serve, just saying. But so that was a really cool decision moment for me. And then as we're getting connected, in a church plant, a lot of times it's a lot of families, especially in Mansfield. It's a lot of families. The Barths had theirs. The Babbas had already been married for quite a long time. The Hortons got married very shortly after we launched, right? 2011, maybe? Oh, 2010, same year. Okay, so It was right around the same time frame. So, everyone's tethered and connected to someone. And some might say I was past my prime, right? So I'm over here like 26, 27, 28, 29, and not partnered up with a life partner, right? So it's funny because at times I was distracted by looking around and seeing what other people had, and maybe I didn't. At times I was disappointed to think what I thought. Like I literally, as a junior hire, was like, I'm gonna be married by this time. I'm gonna have 2.5 kids by the time I'm 24. Like, I just planned it all out. Well, ain't none of that happened. So my expectation was so far away from my reality that I let disappointment get in and cloud my mind, right? And so those times is when I had to stop, change my perspective, and stand on God's word. So in God's word, he created Eve for Adam. He spit on the ground, modeled some clay, breathed life into this clay being, and made a helper suitable for Adam. And so if this is the God that I serve, why am I worried about finding my perfect partner, right? And so I remember telling that to people enough to where it was in my soul and in my mind and in my heart that I don't have to worry about timing, because I know that he can, and I know that he will, and I'm going to proclaim in victory that he is. And I am so glad I did, because Vincent is the cream of the crop, y'all. VC. Yeah, so I would not be the person I am today without Vincent and without his support, without his love, without his wisdom and guidance. And so I'm really thankful. It's funny because a lot of times dads will say, like, you're not good enough for my daughter. My dad said, I don't know if you're going to do better than him because he's the cream of the crop. Which that's okay. I was not offended. I also agree. But he said, don't mess this one up, okay? Hold on to that one. But what's really great is at times people would say, do you think you need to lower your expectations a little bit? And I'm like, no, I do not, because my expectations weren't superficial. I wasn't out trying to find, what is the TikTok? It's 6'5", blue eyes, in finance. Like, it wasn't about that. It wasn't about how much money he made. It wasn't about what car he drove. It wasn't about the status he could bring me in my life. It was about his firm foundation, his resolve, his faithfulness, and his leadership. So one thing that's so cool about it is that, I have this wedding picture up here. And so it's funny because Pastor Trustin was officiated our wedding. And do you see his celebratory fist pump? This is what's like 30 years old. We did it. Finally, right? And then the next picture up here too, I had to put it in because I always know how old Lillian Baba is, because she don't look like she's about to have a baby. She looks really great, but like literal days later is when Lillian was born. So I always know how old she is because I know how long I've been married. But yes, it was really fun to celebrate. This was like full circle. We got to be at their wedding and they got to be at ours. It was really cool. And so I'll fast forward a little bit. When I married Vincent, he had a home and an established life in Louisville. He worked at Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD, so he had been there 12 years, right? So that's some consistency right there. But I had been driving from downtown Dallas, and then married, I'm driving from Louisville. And a couple years in is when we said, what are we doing, right? Like, are we going to go all in and be part of the community that we're investing in on Sunday mornings? Are we going to allow our kids to be in close proximity to our church so that when they want to invite someone to church, I'm not calling their parents and like, hey, I don't know you, but my kid wants your kid to come to church with us, but it's like 45 minutes away. Is that okay with you? Like, you don't know me. I'm going to take your kid. across three counties, So at that moment, we decided we're moving down, we're coming down. And the struggle is real buying a house now. The struggle was real buying a house then. Like, people put in cash offers and they take your bids and all the things. But what we were able to do is stand firm on God's word again. But now we had this victory. Like, he gave me a helper perfectly suited for my life. And now he's going to give me a house perfectly suited for our family, right? So yes, as we continued, that's where that confidence was being built. Confidence in not only what he did in the Bible, but confidence in what he did in our lives. And then we can come back and reiterate that again. So naturally, again, I got married when I was 30, and anyone will tell you that like that time is like ticking when you are 30 and you might have married someone older than you. And so we were like, we're not waiting to have kids. We're just going to jump right in. So again, 2 years in Louisville, and in my mind, I was like, maybe the release that we needed was this decision to move to the church area. And so this is going to unlock whatever's locked up in here to have a kid, right? Because all the doctors were like, A+, you're good. Nothing on paper saying that you shouldn't have kids. But it didn't happen like that. I thought, when we moved down, this was the last leg. We're all in. God's going to bless us. And my logic was not sound. It was not founded in what God was telling me. It was my own human brain trying to make sense of a situation I didn't understand. And then I had gone through not only years now of infertility, we tried for 4 years. 2017 was one for the record book, y'all. In February of 2017, I lost my grandmother. It just devastated our family. She was like the real matriarch and held everyone together. And then the next month in March, we lost my uncle from just a terrible cancer. It was horrible what it did to him. And those losses were so hard for us. Then, after 4 years plus of trying, we find out we're pregnant with our first pregnancy. And I'm like, this is the redemption. We've had all this loss. Now we're going to have joy. But it didn't work out that way. So about 6 or 7 weeks in, we find out it is not going to be a viable pregnancy that we can carry to full term. And it was just devastating. So before, I might have had distractions, and I had some disappointments, but now I had real devastation. I had loss in my life, loss in my family, loss of our family, loss of hopes and dreams that we had the last few weeks. And it was really hard, y'all. But then I had another choice to make, am I going to choose to celebrate my friends even when I don't see victory in my own circumstance? So I have a picture here of my friend Elena. Her daughter Zoe is pictured in utero here. This is at my house, and this is us throwing her a baby shower at my house. I remember this time, and this is actually, I am pregnant here, but in the process of losing the baby, and I had known that it was probably not going to work out about a week before this. And it was really difficult. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I look happy right here, and I'm sure that I know that I was happy for her, but it was very difficult to make that choice to say, no matter what's going on in my life, I will honor the blessings God's giving her. And I will celebrate her because her win is her win. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It's for her, but it is for her good and for his glory. And so we banded together and celebrated that. And so I just wanted to encourage you that when logic runs out, when it doesn't make sense, when you're in the midst of loss or grief or inexplicable sorrow, don't give up. Because what I can tell you is 2017 was one for the record books. The first half of the year was loss, unexplicable. But then the next picture is in 2017, same year. What an awesome redemption story. On Thanksgiving Day, we found out that we were pregnant with Samuel. And what this sign says is, it says, "For this child I have prayed," and it's 1 Samuel 1:27. What's amazing is at this time we did not know it was a boy, we barely just found out. But we also, Vincent, in his wisdom and leadership, he had said, we are going to stand firm on the word and say that infertility is not a new struggle. It's biblical. These people having trouble with infertility, right? And so he's like, in 1 Samuel, Hannah is having a hard time, unable to conceive. This is a struggle for her. And she said, "Lord, if you give me a child, I will give it back to you. I will dedicate him to you." And so we started standing on the word in Samuel. Again, we did not know it was a boy. And honestly, we didn't have Samuel on the baby names list. But what's so awesome is that standing firm on his word and relying on the trust that he's built in us, being willing to celebrate other people's blessings and victories, they gave us so much freedom and ability to keep going. And wouldn't you know, Galatians 6:9, which Vincent said to me more than once, it says that do not grow weary of doing good, for in the proper time you will receive the harvest if you don't give up. And so this is really good, because what if I gave up? There were so many times that I wanted to give up. There were so many Mother's Days that I didn't want to come to church. There were so many times where we were going through a parenting series. When I was single, we were doing a marriage series. There were so many times that I was like, this isn't for me. This doesn't apply to me, but it did. The principles were the same. The word is still the same. And I'm so glad that we kept going, because just the same year in 2017, the absolute worst turned into the absolute best. And what if I didn't? What if I gave up? And so what I love so much is that the next picture we have here is that God did immeasurably more than I could think or imagine, because sure enough, without trying, we had baby number 2, Miss Caroline Chien. And this is a special day. This is the day we changed the church's name to More. And I love so much, because from the minute I found out I was pregnant with Caroline, I was like, she's my More girl. She's immeasurably more than we hoped or imagined. We hoped for 1 and we got 2. And we're so thankful for the kids that we have right now. But one last thing is, speaking of the ripple effect, is I didn't know. You don't know at the time the impact you're having on people, and you don't always know even ever, right? You don't always get that full circle moment where someone's like, I wanted you to know how this impacted me, right? Thankfully, my friends, DJ and Elena, they have been here years and years, and they are so faithful. And one time she told me, I didn't have the same struggle you did with infertility. They've got 3 beautiful girls. She's like, but your story and your willingness to celebrate me at this baby shower has helped me celebrate others when they have gotten their house. They tried to get a house for 7 years. 7 years. They were diligent. They were saving their money. They were dedicated. They were not extravagant with their purchases. They were very reliable people, and they just could not get a house, y'all. They put in 10 different offers over the time, and they kept getting rejection. They kept getting distracted. They kept getting dissatisfied. They kept getting really devastated when they thought oh, this is it. This is the one. And then it wasn't. And so I have another picture. This is the last picture. But here, this is Elena in the middle with baby number 2 on her shoulders, celebrating the Weathersby's brand new house. And you see the joy on her face. She is all the joy. It's coming. It's coming. But so we got to go and pray over their house. We got to pour into them, and our friends who had been so faithful in our lives and so helpful in our lives, we got to celebrate their win together. And even though when we went there and prayed over the Weathersby's house, it was still almost 3 years later that the Reddas were able to buy their home, and they just bought it this last December. So shout out. But I think about that. I was so close to giving up right before Elena's baby shower. And I'm so thankful that we didn't eject, that we didn't stop, that we just kept going, because the Reddas are some of our favorite people in the entire world. And now we have both Sammy and Caroline have little Redda parallels on their kids on ages. And so our family gets to live in community with them because we were willing to celebrate even that.
What an incredible word. We pray that this word would challenge you in a way that you would continue to learn and to grow and to step into all that God has for you. Now listen, it's because of our partners that we're able to spread the gospel through these means, and we'd love for you to prayerfully consider being a partner. And thank you for joining us today. But until next time, remember, God has more for you.